Welcome, 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 Mosaic Souls. Welcome to our second to last Journey Within series. Let me take this. Super excited to be back to share with you 7 lessons I learned through healing myself. So 7 lessons I learned from healing myself. And if you're joining me live, feel free to say hi in the chat. Let's get this party started. Let me make sure that when I do this, let me see. Give me a second. Hello, 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 Mosaic Souls. Hey, Mosaic Souls, I'm Rachael Alexander, artist and Mosaic Soul mentor, aka spiritual life, wellness, and business coach here at Divine Earth School. And today I'm super excited to be talking about the 7 lessons I've learned from healing myself. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this subject today was basically, it was a divine download. And 2, there's just so much power in learning from other people's journeys that you can be able to take these lessons that I've learned and apply it to your own life. So I wanted to share some of these insights. And before I do that, let me make sure that, okay, let me see. Give me a second. Let me make sure that, doing a little housekeeping. For those of you who are joining me or who will watch this video before November 30th at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am having a sale. Divine Earth School is having a sale for 60% off all of our products, programs, and courses and services until tomorrow at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So definitely check out the links in the description box below. I will also post a link below. Give me a second as I pull that up. Okay, let me see. So let me click this and add that here for those of you who are interested in checking that out. And let me make sure you're able to see it here. Just taking care of some house stuff before we dive into this content. And the 7 lessons. If you're joining me live, feel free to say hi in the chat. I'm getting these things together. Okay. Okay, cool. So that's done. Leave that be. So I wanted to, let me make sure I'm being seen and heard. Doing all this. So I wanted to come on and talk about this. Let me make sure that you can see this. Okay, so if I do this, let me switch this. Teaching. No, that's not it. Let me see. Filters. No, let me see. Properties. Making sure that you can. Okay, cool. Cool. So now you can see my screen. Okay, so back in December of this is sort of a revealing photo of me, but back in December of 2019, I sort of fell into and stumbled into healing myself of a large ovarian cyst. Let me make sure. Okay, cool. So I sort of stumbled into healing myself of a large ovarian cyst. And if you can see this picture over here to the left is me looking like I was 6 months pregnant. And this is not me being pregnant. This is when I had a large ovarian cyst, and literally I healed myself in December of 2019. So the reason why I wanted to share some of these insights, so you can kind of see the proof also behind how I healed myself. So in this post I was sharing, in 2016 to 2017, I started noticing my own stomach began protruding, and And I didn't know what was going on, and I knew I wasn't pregnant, although many other people assumed I was. At 6'2", I'm actually 6'2", and slender build. I didn't blame people for assuming, but it wasn't until April, May that I was officially diagnosed with a large ovarian cyst spanning 27 plus centimeters across my abdomen, making me look 4 to 5 months pregnant. And of course, the ovarian surgical specialist wanted to operate immediately and warned me that if I didn't, that it would only grow bigger. So that was sort of my situation. But I knew that I am a divine infinite being and that I can heal myself. So I resolved to healing myself. So back in 2018 is when I was diagnosed, and in the end of December 2019 is when I healed myself officially, right? So I just wanted to share that. So for those of you who didn't know that was a part of my journey, and I wanted to share the 7 lessons that I learned, right? So it's really powerful when you recognize how powerful you truly are and your capabilities. And when you start to recognize how powerful you truly are, then you can start to do amazing, what we would deem to be amazing things, right? To me, they're not amazing. They're just aspects of who we already are. So let's dive into these 7 lessons I learned. Lesson number 1, I learned so many more lessons in these 7 lessons, but I'm just going to boil it down to these 7 lessons. Lesson number 1 is this world that we live in is not real. In essence, it's a simulation, aka dream world, right? Maya, that we can shift and change, right? So going through that process of kind of reawakening to who I truly am on a deeper level, it's like, okay, if you know that you're a divine infinite being having this human experience, how powerful are you truly, really? So, you know, it really helped me to anchor that in, that this is really the Matrix. You know, if you think about Neo and he's looking at the kid when he goes to visit the Oracle, and the kid is like bending spoons at will, and he's like, so, you know, what is the lesson here? And he's like, simply that there is no spoon, that it's all made up, and I can create and bend it at my will because it's not really here, you know? So it's this idea of, you know, us really stepping into our Neo power, our Christ-like power, our own creative power to create the lives we want, really. And so the first sort of principle of that is knowing that the world that we live in is just temporary. It's this small little simulation or dream world, whatever you want to call it, whatever resonates with you, that you have the creative power to create the reality that you want, right? So that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 was there are several different parallel versions of us existing simultaneously, right? So just as I was sharing in that photo of me, you know, there's this version of me, there was a version of me that wasn't healed, right? There's this version of me that was clearly not healed and with an ovarian cyst, and there was a version of me that was already healed. And so it took me about a year or so to actually start to anchor in to the fact that I can heal myself and I could shift to the version of me that was healed already. So same thing with you. And no matter what life situation or things that you're experiencing, there's always another version. There's always a version of you that's already embodying the solution. There's already a version of you that's already embodying your desired outcomes. And really the journey or the work is to get to the version of you to shift all your unconscious beliefs, limiting beliefs and all that stuff to get to that version of you, really. So that was lesson number 2, is that there are several different parallel versions of us existing simultaneously all at once, all the time, right? And we have the ability to shift to these different versions of ourselves through the power of our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and shifting beliefs and stuff like that. And then lesson number 2 was no one has power over you unless you give it to them. And this is excluding curses and hexes, which you can actually reverse. So still no one really has power over you, and you can create your own reality. And so this kind of goes back to this idea that, you know, when I went to the doctor and the doctor was telling me, we got to rush you into surgery because if you don't take it out of you right now, if we don't cut you open, then it's going to grow bigger and you're always going to have it, right? And I already knew because, you know, I come from sort of a medical background in the sense that a lot of my family members, my mother was a physician's assistant for 30 plus years, 40 plus years. And I've already known, you know, the way that the medical industry work. I was already a health coach and stuff like that. So I know that they use scare tactics and fear-based tactics to try to get you to go into surgery because, one, it's all about money. They really don't care about you. Not to say that all surgeons or all doctors are evil, but I'm saying that's just sort of a lot of what goes on in America, because a lot of times surgeons and stuff like that, they get a kickback every time they put you on the operating table, whether or not you need the surgery or not, right? Not to say that surgery is bad. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying I just opted in to not give my power away to this person who was trying to use fear-based tactics and who couldn't even actually tell me how I created this reality and how, like, if they cut me open. Because one of the things that they were telling me was that, oh, well, if we do the surgery, there's no guarantee that we can save your ovaries. They're like, oh, we might have to take away a fallopian tube and stuff. We won't really know until we cut you open. So they were basically kind of telling me that they could take away my possibility for having children, you know. And I was like, no, thank you. So I decided not to give my power away to that person and not to go into a fear-based mode. I decided to stand up and be the empowered version of myself and be like, well, if I created this illness or this abnormality in my body, then I can uncreate it, right? And so that is really where I started to take back my power and not give my power away to other people by moving from a state of ignorance or moving from a state of fear and just moving from a powerful place of, I created this, so I can uncreate this, or I can create a different version of myself, or I can shift to a different version of myself, you know? So that's lesson number 2. No one has the power over you unless you give it to them. Lesson number 4 is healing is really just shifting to a different version of yourself, right? So a lot of times we talk about healing in the spiritual community, and you'll hear me say that term over and over and over. But for me, what really helped me to anchor this into my reality such that it became my reality is that I wasn't necessarily healing myself. I was just shifting to a different version of myself. Because when you think of healing, a lot of times it comes with this connotation that you're broken and that something needs to be fixed, right? And so instead of me saying, well, this version of me is wrong, right, in which I'll get more into later on to other points, but instead of saying this version of me is wrong and I need to be fixed, right, is I decided to say, well, there's a version of me that's already whole, that this version of me is whole already, but I prefer this other version of me that doesn't have the ovarian cyst, so I'm going to move into that energy instead, right? And so instead of saying I'm going to heal myself, which had this sort of like glimmer of like brokenness to it, I decided to shift my mindset and saying, I'm just going to shift to the version of me that's already healed. I'm going to shift to the version of me that's already whole, that doesn't have any body or abnormalities and all that stuff. And that's what I'm going to do. So to me, another way of reframing, because a lot of times with the idea of healing is this idea that you're broken, but you can shift that frame of reference and start saying, I'm just going to shift to a version of me, or shift to a reality that I prefer, right? And shifting just feels a lot less like heavy and dense, like, oh, I got to fix myself now, versus being like, I'm just going to shift to a different version of me that's already healed. I'm just going to shift to a version of me that's already abundant. I'm just going to shift to a version of me that already has my partner, in crime or whatever. We're always usually trying to manifest love, money, or health and well-being. Those are usually the things that's always touch on those top 3 topics. So that's really no thanks. Okay. So that's the 4th lesson that I learned. The 5th lesson that I learned was you have to do the healing work. Really, there's no way around it. As an adult, all the adult trauma, resentment, suppression, fear, deep conditioning, and limiting thought forms and behaviors, etc., that I was holding on to, I had to deal with, right? So bringing that to the forefront of my consciousness and resolving, healing, and transmuting these energies for me was so crucial, right? So there's no way, you have to do the healing work. So a lot of what I was doing during that year, like aligning to the version of me that was already healed, was doing a lot of this inner healing work. So I did attempt to heal myself through like the physical means, and I think people can do that. I feel like take the path of least resistance, because sometimes, going the route of like, going all raw vegan, or doing there's so many paths of healing. I always say take the path of least resistance. To me, I just wanted to use the power of my mind. At first, for like the first month or 2 after I got that diagnosis, I tried to do the raw vegan thing. And then after a while, I just came to a sort of common sort of reserve within myself that, I ain't gonna worry about this. Like, I don't think me eating a piece of meat or me eating, a pizza or whatever is really the cause of this. I feel like this is deeper, this is some spiritual stuff that I need to deal with. And so I just decided, in my mind, I resolved, I'm already healed. I kept saying, if you ever talk to me a lot of times during that year and a half or whatever that it took me to heal myself, people be like, oh, aren't you worried? Shouldn't you do this? And, my parents or other friends and family would say certain things to me like, oh, aren't you concerned? I'm like, no, I'm healed. I don't have to worry about it. It's done. I really don't think about it. And so I really came to a place of resolve within myself. Now, mind you, it took me a second, like 3-4 months after getting that diagnosis. I was doing a lot of writing, a lot of scrying, a lot of journaling, a lot of crying, a lot of releasing and stuff like that. So I was doing a lot of that inner work, right? And so for me, that was releasing a lot of the suppression of my own creative expression and creative energy. I had got caught up in this people-pleasing cycle in my own life, some personal stuff, and developed deep disbelief in my gifts, talents, and skills and heart's calling that I was suppressing what it was that I really wanted to create in my life, right? And what I really wanted to be doing, which is creating freely without shame, guilt, or apology. And so this is deeply connected to my sacral and root chakras of pleasure, creativity, expression, and stability. So for a lot of my ladies who have womb issues, a lot of that comes from, and it was ironic too, because I actually got the diagnosis when I was working at an office. I was working at a university or whatever, and like pretty much every one of my coworkers, except like 1 or 2 of them, and there was a lot of females in my office, had some womb issues, which is to me was such an indicator of how disconnected we are from our divine feminine energy, of pleasure, of creativity, of creative expression, of stability, of feeling safe within our bodies, feeling safe enough to be ourselves, And so I had to do a lot of root and sacral chakra work, and I did a lot of healing around that. I researched a lot. I was doing a lot of releasing and shifting my beliefs that it was okay for me to be creative. It was okay for me to be the divine creative being that I am, and to stop people pleasing and trying to live up to other people's expectations of who I should be and what I should be doing with my life and all this other stuff, right? So I had to release a lot of that stuff. And so you can't really get around that when you're shifting to a different version of you, because that's only going to hold you back. It's going to be sort of like this invisible elephant in the room that's like, like being like, okay, whenever you're ready to look at me, because if you keep banging your head against something that you're not creating, like let's say you're but you're have an intention to manifest a specific reality, and maybe you've been at it for months or even years and you're not making headway, a lot of times it could be because you're not doing this internal work, which is so crucial. So you can't really get around this kind of work. You got to do the deep inner healing work, which you hear me say a lot on this channel at this point. So that was lesson number 5. Lesson number 6 was acceptance of your current version of reality is first key to unlocking the other preferred realities, because it releases resistance from your frequency field. So releasing self-judgment and self-hatred / blaming and moving into self-love, acceptance, and compassion is really key, right? So the reason why this is super important is because after, like, as you're doing this healing work, as you're doing this type of work for yourself, for your life, right? You can't really shift to a different it's kind of counterintuitive, right? You would think, well, in order to move to a different version of myself, in order to shift to a different version of my reality, I have to shun or push away my current version. And actually, it's quite the opposite. You have to accept and fully embody and fully be okay with where you are right now, which is why I talk about that in the cycle of purpose. I'll link to the video below of, discovering your life purpose, with that surrender part of accepting where you are right now. You can't truly move into a different version of yourself until you accept where you are right now. And I think like the spiritual principle behind that is kind of what I was talking about a little bit yesterday about embracing our dark sides, right? Is when you recognize that you're God, source made manifest in human form, right? God is also the dark and the light, right? And so it's part of like you embracing all aspects of yourself, right? If you think of, just going to a money example of like a homeless person versus a millionaire, they're both exploring different aspects of abundance, right? And one person is exploring, having a lot versus having a little. Neither is good or bad. That whole good or bad thing is totally human made up, and it's total BS, right? It's total bullshit, right? So truthfully, when you start to embody your true self, you start to accept all aspects of you. So when you come into wholeness, it's like sort of reclaiming different fragmented aspects of yourself that you shunned and coming back into the wholeness of who you are. That's why acceptance is so important into like unlocking that key to like opening up the door to other parallel versions of yourself, right? So it's super important because it releases a resistance from your energetic field, because you're no longer saying, well, this shouldn't be happening, and what you resist persists, right? If you've heard that saying over and over, what you resist persists. So instead of resisting, saying, this is interesting, I created this reality. I wonder what this is here to teach me. And I'll get more into that. And this is the last lesson that I learned. but you start to grok more of why you're here, or not even necessarily you need to know the why. It could just be like, this is interesting. I created this reality. This is here for me. Everything is happening for me because it's here. I'm creating this reality. I'm experiencing this reality. So there must be nothing wrong with me in this moment, right? So coming into full acceptance of who you are allows you to be more playful and be like, oh, okay, I wonder what would feel like to be this version of myself, right? I wonder what it would be like to not have an ovarian cyst. I wonder what it would be like to, manifest my life partner. I wonder what it would be like to, have a successful business, whatever it is that you're trying to manifest, right? So I wonder what it would be like. And you start to be a little bit more playful and less like you release the resistance and you come back into wholeness. And that wholeness gives way to you being able to shift and change into different realities, because what I'm trying to explain here is sort of like an energetic energy thing that is kind of challenging to put into words. So energetically, what is happening is that all of you comes together and you begun to embrace the pauper and the millionaire version of you. You're not saying that the homeless version of yourself is wrong. You're saying, okay, I manifested, for example, if you manifested homelessness or whatever, less than what you want, right? That version of me is okay. And I'm okay with that version of me. Like, that version of me is still divine. It's just as divine as the millionaire version of myself, right? When you come into wholeness and you recognize that it's all you, that's the key, is recognizing that every aspect of it is you. Like I said, there's multiple parallel versions of you existing simultaneously. And the only way you can unlock the door and walk into a different version of you is accepting the version of you that you are in right now. And when you do that, it moves into, it's almost like the universe knows, your higher self knows that you can't like trick the universe, right? Like you can't trick the universe, because resistance is very much, if it's in your energetic frequency, is going to be like a block or a boulder, like stopping you from moving into who you want to be, right? But when you release that resistance, all the boulders come down and it's like floodgates of abundance, floodgates of anything that you desire starts to move into your life, because you're no longer offering resistance to it, right? So that's really sort of like the energetic component of what's going on, is this coming into wholeness. And then from that wholeness, you're like, then you can start looking at your life as a buffet, like, what do I want on the buffet, right? What do I want to put on my plate today? Versus being like, I shouldn't be having this on my plate, and getting mad at the plate. No, it's just like, oh, this is on my plate. Okay, this is awesome. This is a version of this reality. I'm just going to scrape that off and add this more. It's not like, oh, this is bad. That's cool, but not what I'm preferring right now. I'm going to move on over to this, So hopefully that makes sense. Sometimes I find it very challenging to describe something on an energetic level, because a lot of times I'm experiencing things on an energetic level, and it might be challenging to put it into words. So that's lesson number 6. And another aspect of lesson number 6 is also stabilizing in the energetic frequencies of appreciation and gratitude helps you to move mountains, right? So after you come into this state of acceptance, moving into gratitude or appreciation also helps to raise your vibration and helps you to be more magnetic in your energetic frequency to attract more of what you desire, right? So one of the 2 questions that you can ask yourself, depending on where you are vibrationally, this question is more so if you're in a higher vibration or a less dense frequency, is how has this life event benefited me, right? This depends on how well you can accept your current circumstance, right? So if I were to go back to that experience of how has, that version of me when I had a large ovarian cyst, how has this benefited me? What have I gained from this experience? Me developing, for people who get cancer or all this stuff, like there's some benefits here. Like what have I learned from this? How have I grown? How have I expanded? What have I learned about myself? And if you can't go there, because it depends on where you are vibrationally, then another question would be, what can I be grateful for and appreciate in my life right now, right? So, take either path of least resistance. It just kind of depends on where you are. But those 2 questions help you to start to stabilize your energetic frequency into the energy of abundance, of gratitude, of appreciation. And the more you're in that state of being, you start to be a vibrational match to what you truly desire. Because if you think about it, right, you only really manifest what you're a vibrational match to, right? So if you're vibrating out into the universe, I don't have what I want, this is not what I want, this is not what I want, then you're only going to get back the same energy that you're putting out, right? But if you're like, all is well, My well-being is assured no matter whether or not I have this ovarian cyst, no matter whether or not I have $10 to my name or $1 million to my name, no matter whether or not I have the life partner or not. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm whole. Like, I'm so whole. It's not even funny. I don't even care if what I really desire truly manifests. That's how you know you get to that state of, which I'll get into this next part, that state of certainty, right? So that's really key. Okay, and so the last lesson that I learned was we are powerful beyond measure because we are energetic beings that have creative power in this energetic world, right? If you're joining me live, feel free to say hi in the chat. And so one of the major ways you can start to transform your reality is through invoking the energy of certainty and knowing, like I was saying. Knowing is having an energetic quality of it's done without a shadow of a doubt, so much so that you don't even have to think about it, right? So, so understanding that we are so powerful, and the way that we're powerful and creative is through our power, which is this next part, is that we are meaning giving machines, right? So what I mean by that, so the meaning that we give things is how it's going to play out in our reality, right? So give things meanings that benefit you, aka things are always working out for me, or I always get what I want. This is here for me, right? So if this is here for me, then this must not be bad. I created this though, so I'm supposed to learn or grow or expand from this, right? So when you start looking at that, you start changing every life event instead of, can't remember. I think it was Eckhart Tolle who said this parable in one of his books or something. But he was talking about, the monk or something who would always, or the person, the sort of the wayward man who would always say maybe as a way to like avoid having to label things as good or bad, right? And so when you avoid saying, you can put things in a neutral state and just allow life to flow through you, or you can be super positive and just be like, everything's happening for me. Like, so you can spin things to where you give it a positive meaning. That way, when you flip it and give it a meaning, you're always going to benefit from it, because whatever meaning you're giving, it is the way it's going to play out in your reality, right? So even when crap, quote unquote crap, happens, you can give it a positive meaning that always serves you and is in service to your well-being, right? So that was really the seventh lesson, which moving into that an energetic frequency of knowing, of certainty, of embodying, right? You're so whole. I'm so whole. It's already done. I don't even care if it manifests because I'm whole right now, right? And when you come into the wholeness, it's almost like everything in your energetic frequency that was resisting and blocking your desired manifestation moves out of the way, and then it has no choice but to flow to you because you're in vibrational alignment with what you desire, right? So those are really the 7 lessons that I learned in healing myself, right? So let me see. So let me do a quick recap. So the lesson number 1 that I learned was this world that we live in is not real. In essence, it's a simulation, aka a dream, Maya world that we can shift and change through the power of our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and all that stuff. Lesson number 2 is there are several different parallel versions of us existing simultaneously. Lesson number 3 is no one has power over you unless you give it to them, period. Lesson number 4 is healing is really just shifting to a different version of you. You can reframe the term healing to shifting because it lessens the charge of feeling like you have to fix yourself. Lesson number 5 is you have to do the healing work. There's no way around it. Releasing the deep conditioning and limiting thought forms and behaviors, and also dissolving all those, moving into, shifting and doing the healing work. The inner healing work is super important to shifting to your desired reality. And this doesn't apply only to healing your physical body. This means whatever you're trying to manifest, whether that's a material thing, whether that's a relationship, whatever it is that you're trying to manifest, you have to do the inner healing work, because clearly at some part of you is not on board with the version of you that you desire to be. And you have to be willing. You don't have to do anything, but if you want to create the desired reality that you want, there has to be a willingness within you to want to look at those aspects of yourself that isn't in alignment with what you desire, right? And then lesson number 6 is acceptance of your current version of reality is first key to unlocking the other preferred realities, because it releases resistance from your frequency field, right? And also stabilizing in the energetic frequencies of appreciation and gratitude helps you to shift to your preferred reality more quickly. And the last lesson is that we are powerful beyond measure, basically because we're divine creators, and we're divine creators by the meaning that we give things, and we can give things meanings that serve our well-being all the time, right? And also moving into the state or the energetic frequency of certainty, of knowing, embodying your wholeness is also an aspect of moving you closer to your desired realities, right? So those are 7 lessons that I learned from healing myself. So let me know in the comments below, for those of you who are watching the replay, which lesson you resonated most with in the comments below. And for those of you who are looking for more support and help along your journey in creating the life that you desire that is in alignment with your higher self, so that you can become self-actualized while on this planet, feel free to visit us at divineearthschool.com/call to book a complimentary call. Put that in the chat. To book your complimentary call. And on this call, we'll discover what steps, what things are actually blocking you from being where you wanted to be in your life, and actually action steps that you can start to take. And part of those action steps might be to work with me on a deeper level. And if so, we'll talk about that. And if not, that's also cool. But it'll be a really great 45 minutes to an hour-long session that will help you to gain clarity on where you're at and what's holding you back, and what things that you can actually do to move yourself forward towards your desired reality. So if that's something that you're looking for support around, visit us at divineearthschool.com/call. And definitely remember to take advantage of our Black Friday end of year sale tomorrow until tomorrow at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You just enter in the code LOVE to grab at the checkout of your desired purchase, whatever you're purchasing. Enter in the code LOVE. You can grab those savings. So check that out. Link in the description box below. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Haven't really been checking the chat. So give that a second. Cool. So remember to always flow with what feels good and let go of what doesn't, because you are divine. You are a divine being, and your soul knows exactly what you've come to explore and experience while on this planet. So remember, what you conceive is what you'll receive, what you expect is what you'll get, and however you feel is what will become real for you. So vibrate higher, and I will chat with you guys for tomorrow's last live event. I'm excited. Well, not last live. I'll probably come on here live again, but for the month of November, rounding out our Journey Within series. So I've been having a blast coming on here live. Hopefully you guys have been finding this content helpful. And if you have, definitely give this video a thumbs up, comment below, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you guys soon. Peace, love, and light.